Chapter 1, Part 1, of the Colored Patriots of the American Revolution, by William Cooper Nell. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by the Progressing America Project. The Colored Patriots of the American Revolution. Chapter 1. Massachusetts. Crispus Attucks, Colored Americans on Bunker Hill. Seymour Burr, Jeremy Jonah, a brave colored artillerist. Governor Hancock's flag. Big Dick. Primus Hall. James and Hosea Easton. Job Lewis. Quack Matrick. Jack Grove. Bosun Wright. Petitions of colored men in old colony times. Legislative action on slavery. Mum Bet. Governor Hancock against kidnapping. Paul Cuff, etc., etc. On the 5th of March, 1851, the following petition was presented to the Massachusetts legislature, asking for an appropriation of $1,500 for the erection of a monument to the memory of Crispus Attucks, the first martyr in the Boston Massacre of March 5, 1770. To the Honorable, the Senate and House of Representatives of the State of Massachusetts, in General Court assembled. The undersigned, citizens of Boston, respectfully ask that an appropriation of $1,500 may be made by your honorable body for a monument to be erected to the memory of Crispus Attucks, the first martyr of the American Revolution. William Cooper Nell, Charles Lennox Raymond, Henry Whedon, Lewis Hayden, Frederick G. Barbados, Joshua B. Smith, Lemuel Burr. Boston, February 22, 1851. This petition was referred to the Committee on Military Affairs, who granted a hearing to the petitioners, in whose behalf appeared Wendell Phillips, Esquire, and William Cooper Nell, but finally submitted an adverse report on the ground that a boy, Christopher Snyder, was previously killed. Admitting this fact, which was the result of a very different scene from that in which Attucks fell, it does not offset the claims of Attucks and those who made the 5th of March famous in our annals as the day which history selects as the dawn of the American Revolution. Boda's History and Hughes' Reminiscences, the Tea Party survivor, established the fact that the colored man, Attucks, was of and with the people, and was never regarded otherwise. Boda, in speaking of the scenes of the 5th of March, says, quote, "The people were greatly exasperated. The multitude ran towards King Street crying, 'Let us drive out these ribolds, they have no business here.' The rioters rushed furiously towards the custom house. They approached the sentinel crying, 'Kill him, kill him.' They assaulted him with snowballs, pieces of ice, and whatever they could lay their hands upon. The guard were then called and, in marching to the custom house, they encountered," end quote, continues Boda, quote, "a band of the populace, led by a mulatto named Attucks, who brandished their clubs and pelted them with snowballs. The maledictions, the imprecations, the execrations of the multitude were horrible. In the midst of a torrent of invective from every quarter, the military were challenged to fire. The populace advanced to the points of their bayonets. The soldiers appeared like statues, the cries, the howlings, the menaces, the violent din of bells still sounding the alarm, increased the confusion and the horrors of these moments. At length, the mulatto and 12 of his companions, pressing forward, environed the soldiers, and striking their muskets with their clubs, cried to the multitude, 'Be not afraid, they dare not fire. Why do you hesitate? Why do you not kill them? Why not crush them at once?' The mulatto lifted his arm against Captain Preston, and having turned one of the muskets, he seized the bayonet with his left hand, as if he intended to execute his threat. At this moment, confusing cries were heard, 'The wretches dare not fire.' Firing succeeds. Attucks is slain. The other discharges follow. 3 were killed, 5 severely wounded, and several others slightly." End quote. Attucks had formed the Patriots in Dock Square, from whence they marched up King Street, passing through the street up to the main guard, in order to make the attack. Attucks was killed by Montgomery, one of Captain Preston's soldiers. He had been foremost in resisting, and was first slain. As proof of a front engagement, he received 2 balls, one in each breast. John Adams, counsel for the soldiers, admitted that Attucks appeared to have undertaken to be the hero of the night and to lead the people. He and Caldwell, not being residents of Boston, were both buried from Faneuil Hall. The citizens generally participated in the solemnities. The Boston Transcript of March 7, 1851, published an anonymous communication disparaging the whole affair, denouncing Crispus Attucks as a very firebrand of disorder and sedition, the most conspicuous, inflammatory, and uproarious of the misguided populace, and who, if he had not fallen a martyr, would richly have deserved hanging as an incendiary. See footnote. Begin footnote. The transcript of March 5, 1855, honorably alludes to Crispus Attucks. End footnote. If the leader, Attucks, deserved the epithets above applied, is it not a legitimate inference that the citizens who followed on are included, and hence should swing in his company on the gallows? If the leader and his patriot band were misguided, the distinguished orators who, in after days, commemorated the 5th of March must, indeed, have been misguided, and with them, the masses who were inspired by their eloquence, for John Hancock in 1774 invokes the injured shades of Maverick, Gray, Caldwell, Attucks, Carr, and Judge Dawes in 1775, thus alludes to the band of misguided incendiaries. Quote, "The provocation of that night must be numbered among the master springs, which gave the first motion to a vast machinery, a noble and comprehensive system of national independence." End quote. Ramsay's History of the American Revolution, Volume 1, page 22, says, quote, "The anniversary of the 5th of March was observed with great solemnity. Eloquent orators were successively employed to preserve the remembrance of it fresh in the mind. On these occasions, the blessings of liberty, the horrors of slavery, and the danger of a standing army were presented to the public view. These annual orations administered fuel to the fire of liberty, and kept it burning with an irresistible flame." End quote. The 5th of March continued to be celebrated for the above reasons, until the anniversary of the Declaration of American Independence was substituted in its place, and its orators were expected to honor the feelings and principles of the former as having given birth to the latter. On the 5th of March, 1776, Washington repaired to the entrenchments. "Remember," said he, "it is the 5th of March, and avenge the death of your brethren." In judging, then, of the merits of those who launched the American Revolution, we should not take counsel from the Tories of that or the present day, but rather heed the approving eulogy of Lovell, Hancock, and Warren. Welcome then be every taunt that such correspondents may fling at Attucks and his company, as the best evidence of their merits, and their strong claim upon our gratitude. Envy and the foe do not labor to traduce any but prominent champions of a cause. The rejection of the petition was to be expected, if we accept the axiom that a colored man never gets justice done him in the United States, except by mistake. The petitioners only asked for justice, and that the name of Crispus Attucks might be honored, as a grateful country honors other gallant Americans. And yet, let it be recorded, the same session of the legislature which had refused the Attucks monument, granted one to Isaac Davis, of Concord. Both were promoters of the American Revolution, but one was white, the other was black, and this is the only solution to the problem why justice was not fairly meted out. In April 1851, Thomas Sims, a fugitive slave from Georgia, was returned to bondage from the city of Boston, and on Friday, June 2, 1854, Anthony Burns, a fugitive from Virginia, was dragged back to slavery, both marching over the very ground that Attucks trod. Among the allusions to the man, and the associations clustering around King Street of the past and State Street of the present, the following are selected. The first is from a speech of the Honorable Anson Burlingame in Faneuil Hall, October 13, 1852, on the rendition of Thomas Sims. Quote, "The conquering of our New England prejudices in favor of liberty does not pay. It does not pay, I submit, to put our fellow citizens under practical martial law, to beat the drum in our streets, to clothe our temples of justice in chains, and to creep along, by the light of the morning star, over the ground wet with the blood of Crispus Attucks, the noble colored man, who fell in King Street before the muskets of tyranny, away in the dawn of our Revolution. Creep by Faneuil Hall, silent and dark, by the Green Dragon, where that noble mechanic, Paul Revere, once mustered the Sons of Liberty. Within sight of Bunker Hill, where was first unfurled the glorious banner of our country, creep along, with funeral pace, bearing a brother, a man made in the image of God, not to the grave. Oh, that were merciful, for in the grave there is no work and no device, and the voice of a master never comes. But back to the degradation of a slavery which kills out of a living body an immortal soul. Oh, where is the man now, who took part in that mournful transaction, who would wish, looking back upon it, to avow it? Thousands of agitated people came out to see the preacher, Burns, led off to slavery, over the spot where Hancock stood and Attucks fell. [Footnote: The Worcester Spy. And at high change, over the spot where on the 5th of March 1770 fell the first victim in the Boston Massacre, where the Negro blood of Crispus Attucks stained the ground, over that spot Boston authorities carried a citizen of Massachusetts to Alexandria as a slave. Footnote: Theodore Parker, June 4th. A short distance from that sacred edifice, Faneuil Hall, and between it and the courthouse, where the disgusting rites of sacrificing a human being to slavery were lately performed, was the spot which was first moistened with American blood in resisting slavery, and among the first victims was a colored person. Footnote: The Honorable Charles Sumner's speech in Congress, June 28, 1854. Nearly all those who had watched the trial of poor Burns, who heard his doom, saw the slave guard march from the courthouse, that had been closed so long, through State Street, swept as if by a pestilence, down to the vessel that, under our flag, bore him out of the bay the Pilgrims entered, into captivity, would rather have looked on a funeral procession, rather have heard the rattling of British guns again. Sad, shocking, was the sight of the harmless, innocent victim of all that mighty machinery, as he passed down Queen Street and King Street, all hung in mourning. Better to have seen the halter and the coffin for a criminal again paraded through our streets, than the cutlasses and the cannon for him. As he went down to the dock into which the tea was thrown, the spirits that lingered about the spots he passed vanished and fled, whilst dire and frightful images arose in their place. Footnote: Speech of Charles M. Ellis, one of Burns's counsel, July, 1854. End of chapter 1, part 1, of the Colored Patriots of the American Revolution.